Welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Damona Peacock, a fabulous, non-binary, neurodivergent, ordained queerdo who has a hyperfixation for all things symbolisms, cycles, and patterns.
And I am Moonkitte, a queer femme poly kitchen witch and a proud geek. Today's topic is Fall Equinox.
And so the wheel turns.
Right. I know, it's so funny that we've been doing this now for a full season.
Yay! We survived the summer.
We survived summer. It is time to get into all the fun things that start to happen in the fall. Autumn's. I have to admit, autumn is probably cliche, being witchy and everything else. But autumn is absolutely and always has been my favorite season. It's just, I love the warm colors. I love that the air is crisp but still warm and has that warmth undertone to it. It's not just cold yet. And I love the breezes. I love the wind blowing through, all of that.
That's the one who lives in California, just
yes.
saying. Still warm for us.
Fair. To be fair, yes. Again, we are based in California.
For people north of us.
I would love to visit Maine and of course all that northeastern during actual fall, because again, we get fall in California, but it generally does wait. Right now we're recording this again about the time of the fall equinox, and I promise you it's probably still in the high 90s through September in California right now. So we really hit fall about late October, beginning of November, and then it kind of just dives straight into winter. So we get out 3 weeks of fall, maybe, truly, but for those 3 weeks, it's glorious.
When we can return to spending more time outside, that's definitely becomes my favorite time of the year. Whether we're on the spring side of the wheel or the fall side of the wheel, those balances, those are kind of like my sweet spots. Summer is hard because it's too hot. Winter is hard because I don't get enough sunshine.
Right.
So.
No, I hear it. So fall is that transition, right? It's that transition period between the heat of summer and that cold of winter. So again, that's why we love it. It's that middle ground. It's just,
and I remember as a baby pagan, I was taught that fall, and more specifically the end of October, Samhain area, is pagan New Year. That's where we see the wheel of the year restarts. So where we're at the equinox is the beginning of the end, the beginning of the coming, the end of getting the best what we have out there for the year, and bringing it all in, bringing in the harvests, bringing in the preparation, getting ready for the big long sleep. So it's a lot of work, but it's also a celebration.
Right. And as both pagan and queer, I think also there's a lot of queerness and queer activities and things that tend to happen around the fall area because we're non-traditional. You think of June as the month of weddings traditionally and everything else, but you are, as you said, an ordained queerdo, and you have done a lot more weddings in the fall, correct?
Correct. I would say September is the June for queer weddings. And if not September, then definitely October. And I have done so many, including my own. Like my own wedding was in September, and my bestie's wedding end of October. Like the fall is where it's at for wedding season. For all people, it's definitely the second peak, I'd say, of wedding seasons. It's you're going to get decent enough weather, beautiful photos, no matter where you end up doing your wedding. So yeah, I've done a lot of queer unions around this turn of the seasons, and I love it. Definitely brings in more. And yeah, we definitely shirk traditions, but here's the other thing. Where we started our podcast in June with Pride, and I don't know if this is like this in other places, but locally we have a rainbow festival that always happens in September in downtown Sacramento. So in their Lavender District area, they will quarantine block off some blocks around the Lavender District, and there'll be vendors and a big stage and performers and drag and take your family, food trucks, and it's always really hot, even if it's in September. But
Right.
yeah, I always feel like that's the June is the beginning of Pride season, and then in September, when we reach September, we're like, we're not done partying. Yeah,
Yes. No, I've actually never been to the Rainbow Festival. It's something when it's, I know I really should get down there
put it
and
on
do
your bucket
that.
list. It really, I saw Todrick Hall.
I,
It
yeah.
was so good, and Todrick Hall, to be honest, I'm not going to get into it, but controversial for some
Hmm.
reasons that I'm not going to get into right now. But I will say that that person can put on a show.
I
The
bet.
dancing in the heat with all the costumes and all the queens, to be fair,
Mhm.
like they just blow my mind with their endurance.
Drag queens are on a league of their own. Like I said,
It is a sport, not a
it is a
contact
sport.
sport.
It is a sport, and I have to tell. This is, I know it's completely off topic, but it kind of relates to that. Is going outside and doing things. There is a drag queen that I follow on TikTok called Pattie Gonia, and she's like a ranger. So she's full drag doing queer hikes in Yosemite, all over, getting queers outdoors, and she is so freaking cool, and it's so amazing. And it's, I love that this kind of, again, non-traditional, getting people out there doing stuff, queer families, queer exploration, and just getting queer into normal heteronormative spaces. And just no, check her out, seriously.
You're gonna send me that link, I'm telling you
I
right
am totally
now.
gonna send you a link, and I'm also gonna link it down again in the show notes, because I think
Yep.
if you love drag queens, you need to see Pattie Gonia and her stuff, because it is so cool.
I do follow a lot of drag on TikTok, but I have not
Yeah.
found her, so more the
I'm not sure
merrier.
how she came across, but again, same thing. I have absolutely fallen in love with her.
And
But
of
speaking of
course,
drag queens and drag expression, now I know we've got Halloween
oh,
that
that's
also comes up. And
right.
again,
It
we've
comes.
got with that fall equinox. Again, we're not, Samhain obviously is Halloween. That comes a little bit different, and we will have a podcast episode about Samhain, everything coming up. So you'll see that in the next couple of weeks.
But it does, like, fall equinox is the turning towards like
Mm-hmm.
encompassing all these things that we now have to look forward to. And yeah, Halloween is a big one. Not only do we get to like have a specific excuse to live out our cosplay dreams,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people discover drag
Mm-hmm.
on Halloween, or get into drag for their first time, or it can be a threshold into realizing your gender identity that you have like hidden away from others and or yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people have started their gender uh blossoming journey
Mm-hmm.
around Halloween time, because that was an excuse to dress up,
Mm-hmm.
whatever tickled their brains the right way.
Exactly. Again, I think it's that transition. I think it comes back to that fall equinox being that midpoint. It's that the equinox are those 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night. It's that perfect balance that tilts one way or another. And that coming out. So by the time it's like, hey, we've been balanced. Now we're kind of tilting towards exploration and towards that, hey, here's an excuse to be something other than we are. And I say that with air quotes and everything else around that,
Supposed
because
to be.
oftentimes yeah, that's a better phrase. Who we are supposed to be, not
Who
necessarily
we
who
were
we are.
told we were supposed to be. Yeah.
Yes.
And
And like you
breaking,
said,
again, rebelling and breaking that programming, and really going in and discovering that we're so much more,
mhm. And
and
I
that
think
other
that,
people don't get to define that for us.
right. And I just had this thought that kind of that exploration that starts in the fall leads to that spring equinox, which leads into summer and pride, and that acknowledging of who we are, and that coming out,
Rebirth.
uh, that rebirth area that comes with it later. So it's just, again, that kind of idea of cycles and patterns and seasons,
I love it.
um, that comes with
And
all
it
of
is
it,
queer as the day is long, which is about
right?
halfway at this point. Just kidding.
It's the red, orange, yellow of the rainbow.
Exactly. Yes, yes. We're getting into the warmth. Kind of moving from the warmth to the, yeah, we're kind of like,
Yeah,
I love liminal spaces.
right.
Yeah.
It's so good. But also with that exploration and stuff. So you mentioned earlier the wheel of the year.
Uh-huh.
And I know that can also be a controversial thing, because like everything, not all pagans follow the wheel. Um,
Or they call the holidays different things. Like,
right.
so
And
traditionally when I was a baby pagan, we were calling it Mabon, or we called it
mhm,
Mabon.
Right.
We were taught that, second harvest, Mabon, and the funny thing is we give all of these, so many pagan holidays have different names or
Right.
different pronunciations, and not everybody wants to dig that deep into
Where it came
why
from.
or where it came from, or yeah, or what the mythology behind it is. So we decided that
Mhm.
this would be a good time to figure out who Mabon is.
Right. And I did dig a little bit deeper into that. And Mabon comes from the Welsh god Mabon, who was the son of the goddess Meponis,
Who is an
um,
earth mother,
who is an
right?
earth goddess. Yeah, an earth goddess deity in the Celtic tradition. And that name, Mabon, was adopted by Aidan Kelly in the 1970s to refer to the Fall Equinox and all of the different Celtic harvest festivals that would occur around that time. So again, not necessarily on that day, but the Celtic fire festivals, again, lighting of fires leading into the combating the darkness and kind
High
of that transitional
harvest,
stays, high harvest, all that kind of stuff. Um,
Oktoberfest in the Gaelic or
Germanic,
Gaulish,
yeah,
Germanic.
Germanic, Gaulish traditions, exactly. All that kind of thing kind of led into it. But again, when you think back that term, again, that's the 1970s. Well, granted, now that's 50 years from where we are, but that's only 50 years old that someone
That's
arbitrarily
where a lot
decided
of
to
our
call
ancient
it
traditions
this.
came from.
I know, all these ancient traditions. 50 years in the past, ancient tradition,
Hey,
ancient
ancient but
history.
must standards. Hey, I'm still young.
Right. But no, it's really interesting. It was really fun is you and I both know Kristoffer Hughes, who you introduced me to, who is the most amazing person. He is a Welsh Druid who lives on the Isle of Anglesey. And I hope I
In
said that right,
Wales.
in Wales. And I
Speaks
probably said that
Welsh.
wrong, and I apologize and then some, because again, I'm unfortunately very far removed from my Celtic heritage. But yes, in Wales, Welsh Druid, amazing. He happens to also be a coroner and a fabulous drag queen, which again ties back to our love of drag queens. But he is an amazing human, just
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, amazing, dynamic human. And we'll put a link in below to his TikTok that explains Mabon and for and everything about it, and who Mabon was, the son of the goddess, and all the things, different things about it. And I hate to call you
And
on it, but don't call it Mabon.
oh yeah, that's
Don't call it
pronounce.
Mabon, as they
I'm
learned.
terrible
It's Mabon.
at Mabon.
And the
Pronouncing
reason,
it correctly.
right, and the reason I say that is only because that's the first rant he goes into.
Well,
For the love of
this
God,
darn
please don't call it
American
Maven.
accent got me again. That's one of the reasons I absolutely love following Kristoffer Hughes is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful accent,
Oh
speaks
God,
Welsh.
yes.
Definitely Welsh is my heritage. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, not to give too much away, but I have my maiden name is totally connected to Kristoffer Hughes. So when I met him in
Awesome.
person, I was like, "You're my long lost uncle," because who doesn't want a very tall, flaming, beautiful druid drag queen as a long lost uncle? I'm like,
Exactly.
we were related once upon a time. I just know it.
Follow that family tree right up, and it's very possible. Now, again, most of my roots are Irish Celtic, Irish English, that area, but I've only been able to trace back family history so far. But
Welsh
anyway,
and English right here.
exactly,
Pale.
Irish English, Irish Anglo-Saxon. And again, not shouldn't be surprising, but it's really interesting how far that it does go back in my history. But anyway, back to Kristoffer Hughes and TikTok and all of that. So we'll link those below. But again, they go into this amazing information about Mabon. It's really worth checking out and just following their stuff, because they do tours around Wales and other things too. It's just beautiful, and it's just fun and chill to follow if you haven't already.
Essentially, if you want to know more about the Welsh
Mhm.
mythology, ask a Welsh person, and we have a
Absolutely.
good resource.
Yes, we do. And if you are a tarot geek like I am, they also have the most amazing tarot deck called the Celtic Tarot. You can find it on Amazon. It's super easy to find. And again, it's gorgeous, beautiful, and it has the most interesting, intense book that explains everything about it.
The
So
the
there's lots of links to it.
druid tarot or something.
No, it's called the Celtic Tarot.
The Celtic tarot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, but because I follow them on Facebook, also they will have a Yule deck out this year.
Ooh, I missed that. I will have to look at that one
Mhm.
and see, because that will
Yeah,
be very fun.
it'll be something we talk about in the season.
Yes, and hey, we have another episode coming up in the fall for Yule, or excuse me, in the winter for Yule. So
Yeah,
plugging
exactly.
episodes 4 or 5 weeks in advance, but but that's okay. There'll be more to come on that, and I will definitely see if I can find that before
So
then, because it's amazing.
I was also looking up articles
Okay.
for uh Mabon, Mabon, Mabon. It's Ma,
Mabon.
right? I'm gonna get it right. Mabon. Uh, and just to see what information is out there about. And the article did definitely like confirm that the term for this time of year has kind of been adopted in the last 50 years. So definitely not like this from ancient traditions, like a lot of people
Right.
were led to believe. But there's other, I will also link this article in the show notes, but I want to say it was from the Boston Public Library. And it talked about other traditions about this high harvest season, which I found really interesting. One being that originally Thanksgiving used to be earlier in the season because it really did coincide with that high harvest, where you had they said it's the time of year where the farmers would kind of like be able to tell what their crop sizes would be and how well their animals would be fed and how much food would be stored for the winter seasons. So the Oktoberfest, the article kind of spells out some of the overlaying traditions. So I'll definitely share that article too about
Yes, please.
this beautiful time of year.
Right. And that high harvest season makes sense, because again, this is crops they've reached the peak, and now we've got to gather them and store them for the winter. And that comes with a lot of different connotations. Again, you've got pumpkins, which of course, if you are anywhere in the United States, also almost always is associated with pumpkin spice lattes and other
That
things.
PSL
That
season.
it's PSL season, baby. If you happen to like those kinds of things, and all of those kind of traditions kind of again fall into that autumn, fall equinox, that kind of transitional kind of stace. And we'll talk more about pumpkin spice lattes when we talk about our potions episode coming in a few weeks. But yeah, what's really fun about all of this is, for all of these harvest traditions and things that come out, if you are of that witchy kind of pagan bent, everything makes sense. It makes sense on a natural level, because you've got pumpkin spice lattes, which pumpkin spice is cinnamon, ginger, allspice, cloves, and nutmeg, which are cinnamon's spellcrafting, emotional, astrophysical connections. Ginger is healing and protection. Allspice is increasing power. Cloves are protection and cleansing. And nutmeg is heightening that spiritual connection, all of which kind of tie together into that idea of storing and gathering and preparing for the next season that comes into place. So if you really kind of pay attention to all of these things, they all tie back into each other, which I think
That's
is
one powerful
really,
coffee.
I know, right? Plus you've got the caffeine and the coffee beans and everything else that goes behind that. So it's crazy what actually happens when you think about a pumpkin spice latte.
So one of my personal traditions for this time of year, absolute favorite, is that it's apple harvest season.
Yes.
And where I grew up, the hometown that my dad's from around here up the hill is called Apple Hill. And they have all kinds of different apple farms, and baked goods. Like,
yes, I love
so
Apple Hill.
the idea of bringing in the harvest and storing them for winter often was like, making jams and preserves and pies and baked goods. And it's like apple donuts. That's our big tradition. Apple donuts and apple pies and apple cider, spiced apple cider, spiked apple cider, like living in the land of. And I remember when we did the Kitchen Witch episode on the fruit salad, our summer fruits, our base was apple, and because you slice into that apple and you see the pentagram, the power of that. So like fall equinox to me is like apples, apples, apples. Give me all those varieties. Let me taste the different like tartness and sweetness. And
Yes. Well, you're in luck because we're going to be doing a fall edition kitchen witchery, which also features apples and specifically apple cider and spiked apple cider. And it's going to be on potions and magical magical kinds of
Concoctions.
concoctions and such. So yeah, so we're talking literally about that for that reason. Again, that
I'm
kind of
excited.
connection and the transition. So
I'm
we'll have
excited to
more.
hear what your kitchen witchery has in store for us this fall.
Yes, I'm very excited.
It's a good season.
It is such an amazing season. But no, I loved, like growing up, I loved Apple Hill. That same thing, growing up in the Sacramento area. It's on the way to Tahoe. Again, if you're not familiar, Lake Tahoe is a huge, beautiful part of California. And Apple Hill is not quite halfway through, but pretty close up the hill. But again, it's just farms and the fall
Hills,
colors and hills
fall
and
colors, yes.
the other
Pumpkin
fun
patches,
pumpkin patches and corn mazes
corn
and
mazes.
all those kinds of things of getting able to have that celebration and enjoyment and the festivities and that excitement that comes with this with the fall with that enjoyment of that transition between the high heat and the coldness of winter.
And tying that into the human journey, a lot of
Hmm.
times for us pagans, for us growth minded souls, in the spring we tend to focus a lot on what are you planting this year,
Right.
what are your plans for this year, what are you growing into. Well, on the flip side of that liminal space, on the other side, the balance of that, how can we stop for a moment and
Hmm.
recognize the fruits of our labors? How
Right.
have we grown this year? Like, really start to reflect and begin some of that inward journey about,
Hmm.
what has changed for you. So much changes in a few months and in a few years. And the older we get, the less maybe we just get really into our cycles and patterns,
Right.
but we forget that it's not always a circle. Sometimes it's a spiral,
Hmm.
and sometimes we're really leveling up, and we're in a different pattern every year.
Hmm.
So it's a great time to really reflect on how you've grown.
Yes. Absolutely. And start thinking about what you wanted to let go of, what you have grown out of. Not just grown, but grown necessarily out of, because we can grow as people, but as we grow, we shed and we lose some of the old things. We get older and we lose that some of the childlike abilities we have. Or we grow taller and we grow out of clothing. So things, what are you getting rid of and what can you shed out and start thinking of and really get to the point where through this fall season, think about that progression of what you can start to let go of.
Just
And
like with
then,
those cornfields, you
mhm,
take the fruit, you take the corn, you take the seeds, and that nourishes, that's your harvest. But then you have to tear down the fields and
right.
let the soil recharge before
Mhm.
the
Before
next
planting
season's
again.
replanting. So yeah, you have to let go and let the cycles, let the death cycle also
Mhm.
begin.
Exactly. And I think that's going to be great. I think it was a great transition as we're talking about in the over the next few months, talking about that transition cycle and going into the death cycle, into the rebirth cycle, and all of that.
Yeah,
So there's so much more to come. We are so excited about
layers and
this.
layers of symbolism, and it's so beautiful to share the space with you where we can honor those,
I agree.
and help others recognize and honor them in their own time, in their own space as well.
Hmm.
Just want to thank everybody again for being a part of this journey. And we've made it through one season and into another, and I hope that
Hmm.
you're excited about what we have in store for you. There's many more topics we will be covering, and we're
Yes, we are so
excited to go through
excited.
the seasons.
And again, we're so incredibly thankful for everything that you guys do.
For our harvest right here.
Exactly. For the harvest that you're bringing into us, for paying attention and listening to us for a full season. We're so incredibly grateful for that.
And we hope that you continue on the journey with us.
Yes. Like I
Thank you
said, we
for
have
listening.
so much more to come.
So much more. Yes, always. So thank you for listening to the Queer Witch Project. If you enjoyed this topic, please leave a like, a comment, share with some friends, tell us maybe what you would like to hear.
And if there is a topic that you would like to know more about, or an episode topic that you would like to suggest, because we are always looking for new ideas, please contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram with the handle @queerwitchproject. We upload twice a month. That's usually the first and third Wednesdays of the month. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
Be yourself and love rebelliously. Bye.
Bye.